You right now.
Well, I think we're about to hit live, so welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. Our regular Knuckleheads include Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty, our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett, and your host, Jason McPhee. We consider the issues of the day with an eye on liberty. Now, on with the show. Welcome again. Today is February 2nd, 2022. Somehow we've managed to make it through a little over a year of Biden and COVID, which is just, I'm shocked that we made it through either one of them, let alone both of them. But we're here. And today we have a special show. We have a special guest, Aaron Commey of Escaping the Echo Chamber. And he's been on the show before, but we'll let him tell us a little bit about himself. But we're going to kind of focus a little bit on what's going on in New York because he's from that area. So that'll kind of let us hear a little bit about some of the other stuff going on in a big bad blue state. Well, we're on one side, he's the bookend on the other. So there you go. Aaron, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your channel, Escaping the Echo Chamber?
Oh yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me back. So my name is Aaron Commey, as you said. My channel is Escaping the Echo Chamber, and I talk about a lot of the issues that are going on, current events, trending, and definitely from a libertarian perspective, because there's just so much nonsense coming from the mainstream. Whether it's Team Red or Team Blue, it's like they're both competing to be more authoritarian. And so it's an uphill battle for, somebody that actually just wants to be left alone.
Yeah, definitely. And, and also too, your channel, Escaping the Echo Chamber, kind of, I guess, echoes that, the idea that, right. We got echo chambers on both sides, even though we kind of been more focused on one than the other on this show. Both can be a problem. It's right. We've just felt it a little more from one side than the other recently.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely being in blue state, you feel it you feel the Democrat boot on that neck. I know the feeling. I really know the feeling.
Well, Aaron, I guess knowing the feeling that, I mean, we've been in California, we've had lots of lockdown issues here. And, I know you've had, I guess, maybe even worse lockdown issues in New York. And so some of the recent news there is that I guess it's been bouncing back and forth between, I guess, our central planning elite trying to force masks and mandates of vaccines on everybody. And then the courts kind of bouncing back and forth, whether it's going to stick or not. I guess, did you want to tell us a little bit about that? And maybe we can get a visual too on the slide if our invisible hand is listening.
The mandates are it's really ridiculous. At the state level, you got the governor who replaced Cuomo. So anybody who thought that, Cuomo's gone, we can breathe easy. That went out the window real quick. Because Kathy Hochul is just as, if not worse, than Cuomo, and she wants to make a name for herself. So she's doing stuff that doesn't actually make sense, and just trying to basically rule with an iron, fist. But the interesting thing about the mask mandates is that the courts are saying, "Hey, yeah, you can't do that." Whereas the vaccine mandates, because there's two major vaccine mandates, particularly in New York City, they haven't yet been successfully challenged, because the key to New York City, which actually was started in New York and is now going to other states, Boston, Philadelphia, Chicago, it's like it says you can't go to restaurants, movie theaters, like anything that where they consider fun. You can't go to gyms if you're not vaccinated. And then there was a worse, like this one really blew my mind, because right before he left, the Mayor de Blasio, he had 4 days, with 4 days left to his administration. He implemented a mandate that all private companies had to have their employees vaccinated, and it's just like, and it the harm it's causing is insane, and the fact that so many people were just cool with that is what really shocked me.
Yeah.
Are you seeing? So I think I've seen a little bit of news about it, Aaron. But are there any sort of street protests about the mandates at all?
Yes, and particularly in the city, the vaccine mandate is what people are most focused on. Well, the people that are protesting, because even with the mask mandate, that's not as intrusive and not being felt as harshly as the vaccine mandates, because it's people have lost their jobs, and people in fast food and people that worked in movie theaters, gyms, if they didn't take the vaccine, they've been out of work for months already, like maybe 6 months. People who in other private companies, they've been out of work or on leave since the beginning of the year. And then now coming up is the city workers, their deadline of their leave of absence is coming up, so that if they're not vaccinated, their leave of absence expires and they're going to be fired. But there's protests, people going into like restaurants, getting arrested, Museum of Natural History, um, and that's a key way. That's the key. What I realize is to defeating these mandates. Uh, Things like museums and movie theaters.
Hmm.
But Eric Adams, your new mayor, he at one
Yes.
time suggested that he was going to. At least he suggested, maybe he didn't outright state it, but he was suggested that he was going to probably take a deeper look at the mandates and decide if he was going to keep them or not. And he
That's
kind of indicated that he might remove them. But what is happening on that front? Is he doing anything about them?
Okay, so on that front, I thought he was going to get rid of them. So I had been planning to file a suit against the key to New York City. And once he said, hey, I'm going to look at it, I said, okay, I may not have to do it. He's going to get into office. It'll be a moot issue. But the about 2 days before he took office, he announced that he was keeping the mandates. Got into office on that Saturday, New Year's Day. Went to work. He went to work on on New Year's Day
Oh,
just so he could sign the executive orders, re-upping the both mandates, the key to New York City and the private employer mandate. So my suit against him is currently pending, and I'm guessing that it's going to cause waves within the next few weeks, because, like I said, that the museums and movie theaters, the reason why that's key to the mandate is because that implicates the First Amendment. So when you're telling people they can't go to the movies, they can't go to museums, they can't go to comedy shows, you're saying that you're restricting the First Amendment freedoms of people who are not vaccinated.
Yeah,
but
it's one thing too I wanted to bring up for our
Yes.
listeners. Aaron has his own YouTube channel, as we mentioned before, Escaping the Echo Chamber, and he actually has a talk on there about this whole lawsuit that he has filed. And I believe it's what is it, about 10 or 15 minutes long, Aaron? Or
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's definitely someplace you can go and find out a little more about it, especially if you happen to live in that area. You might be interested in learning a little more about it. And I think that, I hadn't planned to jump onto that topic this early, but, that is a great, I guess, action on your part, showing people what you can do as a normal citizen, I guess, taking action. And do you have any, I guess, advice or insights to people on what they might do in their area if they want to take action?
Definitely. I definitely encourage people to file suits. But what I'm actually in the process of doing is putting together drafts, so that people in Chicago, people in Boston, people in Philly can just copy and paste and file their own action. So they don't even have to do the legal research. They just have to file the paperwork, check, adjust the facts specific to their area. And but I'm gonna get all the case law together, all the arguments that they need, because this is ridiculous. It's beyond absurd, and it makes no sense because to tell people that they cannot feed their families if they're vaccinated, because everybody's looking at it from the perspective of just, oh well, it's just you don't get to go to the movies. It's like, but wait a minute, you don't get to work at the movie theater if that was your job. Like you're done, you're fired. If you're at a restaurant, you have to you get fired from the job. And these were the people that during 2020 were hailed as heroes. Yes, they're keeping the cities going. And then you just, oh well, if you don't do what we say, we kick you to the curb.
Yes.
It's yeah.
I noticed on your video that you had to seek help from the private industry around you, such as the UPS store, to get copies of things printed up and to get a notary public, for example.
Right.
Is that you mean the public sector did not provide your solutions?
Surprisingly, shockingly, the private, the public sector wasn't, helpful. I'm just like, it was really, it really blew my mind. And what was really interesting was I actually mailed I tried to mail it with the post office, which was 3 blocks away from
Yeah.
the courthouse, and it took like over 10 days to get back to that same post office just to get picked off by City Hall, which was
Jeez. Good
which was
Lord.
ridiculous.
But Aaron, with this lawsuit, the what is the impact now? The Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, I'm speaking about, just recently said that
OSHA.
the employer mandate done through OSHA is unconstitutional because the government cannot do. OSHA does not have the
Right.
authority to execute the the regulation. So what is that? How is that impacting? How would that impact your lawsuit? Or how would that impact in New York? Per se?
Well, it's definitely good because it's not another barrier that we have to face. So had the Supreme Court upheld the OSHA mandate, that could have made they could have then argued that my case was moot because, hey, doesn't matter what we say, OSHA has implemented it.
Right.
So OSHA, that has been struck down, but the Supreme Court just said OSHA can't do it. So even during the oral arguments, there were suggestions, and the the opposition wasn't arguing that the states didn't have the authority.
Right.
And I get it, because when you're fighting a case, you fight that case. Don't worry about the bigger picture at that point. Just fight that case, win that case.
Right.
But that means that at the state level, we still have to fight against state governments or city local governments implementing these kind of mandates, and that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with our commissioner of health, who implemented the private employer mandate, and it's really interesting because while I'm careful to say, and I'm not gonna do that here either. I'm very careful what I say, especially on YouTube, about the facts of the case. I only deal, especially on YouTube, I only deal with the legality and the morality of the mandates. As far as the facts in terms of the efficacy of this, I got to be careful. the As to whether or not it's actually beneficial, I think it's going to be great to be able to get in the courtroom and have that discussion, because right now, social media, mainstream media is attacking anybody that says something different. But if we get in a courtroom, we can actually get the facts of, okay, is this effective? Is this working? And determine whether or not these policies have actually had an effect on preventing, protecting public health. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
But
I have a question about the mask mandate.
Yes.
So if I went to New York and was required to wear a mask, can I wear like my bandana over my face, my cloth bandana? Or do I
Yes.
have to have a properly fitted N95 that's swapped out every 2 hours?
Right. No, that's the point. And this was what was interesting. It's face coverings. Face coverings. So I remember early, sometime last year, somebody had said, "Oh yeah, just drink tea and stuff," and people were criticizing them. It was a famous rapper, and they were like, "Oh, you're just promoting home remedies. That doesn't work." And I'm like, you know that the mask we're wearing are home remedies. Like you've got people literally like cutting up T-shirts and putting it on their faces. I'm
Yes,
like, that's not the approved, tested and approved PPE like N95s or KN95s. And to see the CDC finally come out and say, "Oh yeah, this is what you should be wearing," it's like we're over 2 years into this. You're
yes.
just now telling people this.
Really sort of shakes it shakes a little bit of confidence in those shepherds out there that
Yeah.
are trying to lead us. But
Well,
yeah,
you can't question the science, you know. What I mean?
And this is the problem, that we can't question the science. These so-called people like Fauci, who's supposed to know it all, who's supposed to be guiding us, just have told us a bunch of lies, and here we are now, two
Yeah.
years later, with nothing.
well,
It's
one of the things I wanted to call your attention to too, Aaron, is the absolute hypocrisy that's going on
Yes.
amongst these people too. I mean,
Yeah.
these are New York City Council members, and you can see they're all having a great time out here.
Right.
And I noticed he doesn't have the official PPE. I noticed she doesn't have the official PPE. I noticed she doesn't have it. But actually, if you look really carefully in the background, you can see the one worker actually has to do it. But all of the shepherds who are telling all the sheep to wear those masks, they don't seem to think it's that important themselves.
And this has been happening the entire pandemic. That's what's crazy. Like this didn't just start happening. This has been happening, especially in these blue states, this entire time. They've
Yes.
been pushing like, "Oh, this is what you have to do. And if you care about your family, if you care about your fellow citizens, you'll make the sacrifices." Like people were literally not allowed to bury their loved ones. Meanwhile, they're partying. You like I know you know about Newsom with the French Laundry, even
Yes.
just this weekend at with Magic Johnson. And
Yep.
you got these council members over here in New York. You've got in like a bunch of politicians in these blue states who are like claiming that it's a moral imperative that you do all of these extra things, aren't actually doing them themselves. And it's mind-boggling that the people are still listening to them.
Yeah, and with Governor Newsom, that was at the NFC Championship game in Los Angeles. New stadium, an indoor stadium, by the way.
Wow.
And, wearing those masks, or not wearing those masks, actually,
Right.
So, clearly they believe in what they're talking about. That's the message.
Yeah, but the larger issue is here that our central planners, there seem to be no accountability for them when they break the rules. Now,
Right.
when we break the rules, we have to face the consequences of that. But our central planners never seem to. Gavin Newsom, he don't care.
Yeah.
London Breed of San Francisco, she don't
Yes.
care. And on the list goes of people. Nancy Pelosi, all of these people can break the rules, no consequences. But when we do, we have to face the consequences.
Well,
This is
Leon,
the real problem.
Leon, they have great excuses, though. I mean, with London Breed, it was Tony, and if it's Tony, he can't be expected to wear a mask,
There's
There's an old saying: the wolf doesn't care about the opinion of the sheep, and I think that's what these wolves are displaying right here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, as far as the lawsuit goes, Aaron, when do you expect to hear the next bit of progress on that?
So I'll be filing a preliminary injunction, motion for preliminary injunction next week, because so I had already filed for the TRO, and that's a high standard, because what that would have essentially done is the court would have ruled without even giving the government a chance to respond. So I knew that was a long.
TRO is temporary restraining order, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And I knew, especially because I'm filing pro se, so I knew I've known that the courts are very reticent to grant TROs from pro se litigants. So I was like, okay, it's a long shot, but if it had happened, I would have been great with it. But if we had to go head to head, I've got no problem doing that. And so I should be filing that next week, and then they'll be setting a court hearing for the preliminary injunction hearing, and that's when we can go toe to toe, and they'll have to actually. They can't just play the game that they're playing with the media. They actually have to come in with a viable defense as to why they're destroying people's lives with these with these mandates.
Are you going to be representing yourself, Aaron?
Yes,
Okay. Do you have? Could I ask if you have any legal training?
I don't have any formal legal training. I've represented myself in past actions. As I had mentioned before, while I was inside, while I was incarcerated, I actually did a lot of my own legal work, and
Oh,
that's what gave me the bug. So, in fact, that's when I found out how hesitant the courts are to grant TROs
yes.
to pro se litigants, because what the court actually did was they gave the government the option to voluntarily not enforce their action, so that we can go without them having to make the decision.
Okay.
Aaron, before we get to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, I wanted to give you a chance to just talk a little bit about any plans you have going forward with your web page, or also
Yeah.
too if you're planning on running for office again soon. Any future plans?
Like with office, it's possible. I'm keeping that option open. Like right now, I like if especially if I can succeed with this, that would definitely I would definitely consider then going against somebody, because you've got the House of Reps up. You've got a bunch of races coming up this year, and I really want there to be some accountability for these people that said nothing, because there's so many politicians that claim to be fighting for the people, claim to care about the people, and that when New York instituted the most draconian, most authoritarian like regulations, like this is mind-boggling, because it's essentially saying that there's no crime for which you're sentenced for that they can say afterwards, oh yeah, you can't work. Like that's never been done. That's never been done. Says, oh yeah, you can't employ. You're not allowed to feed yourself or your family. But they did it now, and there was just silence from all of these politicians that claim to be fighting for the people. And there needs to be some political accountability. Um, as far as my channel, yeah, I'm really focused more on my channel now, because in fact, because of the mandates, I'm unvaccinated clearly, and I'm on leave from my job, so I have time to focus on my channel. So what I said is, now that I have the time, let me actually do full time with the channel. So I should be. I intend to really let the channel grow more.
Yeah, that's excellent. I guess too. It looks like you've got a whole Black History theme coming up this month as well that you look pretty
Yes.
excited about. So
Yeah, yeah, because in the past I've done that, like and it was something that we had done while I was inside. We would get together, we'd have classes like all throughout the month, and not just talk about the history, but talk about like the lessons that we can learn from the history going forward.
okay.
I hope you include some lessons of liberty in there, man.
Oh, absolutely. Like, and that's one of the things I'm talking about. I'm talking about how, like, one of the lessons I talk about is Marcus Garvey, and how you have Marcus Garvey didn't like the communists, and because he realized that they were exploiting the racial animus for their own benefit. So they would say, hey, yeah, we agree this racism is bad, we need to fight the system, and yeah, and just join us and let's give the system all the power. It's like, wait a minute, that doesn't make that's not going to benefit black people at all. What are you talking about? Giving the
Right.
system that's been oppressing it more power? Like, that makes no sense. But we're at a point where because the Republican Party has just been so dismissive, the Democrats can pretend to be, well, we're all you got. And a lot of black people are like, well, okay. But like there's actually history to that, as to why the Democrat Party is now the default party for the black community, and I intend to touch on that as well throughout the month.
That's great. I hope people will.
I would glad to have that discussion with you, because I think there's some real problems with the Democrats and black people. I really do.
Oh yeah,
I would glad to have that discussion with you.
Definitely.
Well, hopefully, people will go there and be able to follow up on some of this on your channel. But as we're getting near the end of our show, this is where we like to bring in some knuckleheaded thing that some politician has said lately, and that takes us right back to New York. And maybe we can get the visual up again for this one. It's your favorite governor, Aaron, and it's New York Governor Hochul telling us exactly what she thinks of her constituents. And apparently on January 21st press conference, when she was asked about the New York mask mandates, Hochul said, my daughter had a meltdown about having to wear sneakers to go to kindergarten. She got used to wearing sneakers in school. They adapt better than adults do. Literally comparing your constituents to 5-year-olds. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I just want to commend you for the tone of voice you had in that little last part there, Jason. You really pulled your parental tone of voice together.
Maybe I'm ready to run for office. I don't know.
Maybe you might do a better job. You might do a better job as the governor. You see these people. These people have some real problems. Okay. Because Jen Psaki, who is Biden's press secretary, she takes advice from a 5-year-old about wearing a mask all day. And now we have this idiot here, your governor. No disrespect, man, but I do mean that she's an idiot. Telling us that they will get adjusted just like they got adjusted to the sneakers. People cannot breathe all day, and this imbecile thinks that this is going to be okay to have people wearing masks all day. God help us with these people.
It doesn't make any sense that people don't realize. Like, she just told you your children, and it's not an accident. Like, this is what the government thinks of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, I know what we think of them on this channel, and it's not very flattering. That's about all the time we have for our show today. We've come to the end of our time. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today, and I'd like to recommend that you check out Aaron's channel, Escaping the Echo Chamber. Lots of great stuff there, and somebody who's literally taking a stand for liberty right now in New York. So go check his stuff out. Thanks so much, and stay free.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.